Hey you, Hans here. Hope you're doing well. In this video, it's gonna be. We'll see if it's going to be two topics or just the one. I wanted to bring something to the attention of those who think or those who might need it. Maybe that is nobody, maybe that is a few. It stays in the middle, really. It's still good to talk about this. I've got a question, and of course, I ask it not so you can tell me, I ask it so you can tell yourself. When you go out in the streets or talk to family or talk to friends, and you just ask about politics in general, do you get positive replies or not? Something like, so what do you think about all these politicians doing their thing? Again, and are people and media going like, yeah, awesome, woo? Or are they, you know, differently disposed on that? And you have to wonder, or I have to wonder about that, because looking more and more into the old philosophers, this is not a new phenomenon. This has been going on for at least since the 19th century, back when Nietzsche was wandering the Alps, and probably even before. But it's strange, is it not? Because the systems that Nietzsche, for example, called out, the moralizers, etc., etc., they they were a thing back then. They're still today, and probably goes back, even a century or two, maybe even more before that. How does it happen though that you have a population who might not necessarily be the most positively disposed to uh, all the controllers of society, still tolerate them? Why are they still a thing? Why haven't people said long ago that they want to be free? Because when you really think about it, you're not free. Is it then that we the people, if you will, does not trust themselves? And that sounds like a bit of a weird language, weird sentence, but it's really, when it refers to a people, you're talking about all the tiny little individuals that form that people, right? How is that possible now? How is it possible that you go out there and you ask about this, vast majority do not necessarily like it? Maybe I'm wrong. And yet, everything just keeps going as it always has. It seems to me that there is a deep distrust that individuals have towards themselves and maybe even towards their neighbors. Some might also just be afraid, and that could be for multiple reasons, which I guess goes hand in hand with distrust when you look at it. So, some might be afraid because they have done something wrong. And when the powers that be, if you will, are simply leaving, they're going somewhere and they're not coming back, then these people might be held accountable, or they might be held accountable by their neighbors. Something like that one time a guy had been drinking too much and he peed in the mailbox of his neighbor. I'm just saying some example, right? And the neighbor, of course, sees this and he is upset. Like the mail is ruined. He has to make sure that the mailman doesn't drop anything in that box the next day or whatever. An entire hassle. But because it's it's definitely not the best thing to do. um, but because do you throw someone in jail for that? Don't think so. Maybe have him pay a fine. Blah blah blah. But there is the neighbor to whom this happened, the guy to whose mailbox was defiled. He's still angry, whether he even gets money from from him or what have you. And the other guy who did that is now living in fear. Oh man, he's gonna, well, what have you? Doesn't matter what. He needs to unleash his anger on me, and even though money was exchanged, but that's sort of an inhumane way of dealing with it, right? Here, have shinies. Now it's fine again. It's like that's not how it works for most people. Some can be bought that way. Their emotions can be bought off, but the vast majority of people, not necessarily. So, if that accumulates over centuries, let's say, that is a lot of pent up energy, and I actually do not think that over the generations that energy goes away. Somehow it might get passed on to the next generations. What do you think? Oh, that guy, like, hey grandpa, grandpa or grandma, tell me the story of that guy that ruined your mailbox. There he is. It's like 50 years after the event. But the children, they grow up with this, and now they look at that family and it's like, oh, that was that family who did that. And these things happen, I give you a bit of a silly example, but it could be something far more severe. Family feuds are a thing. And it used to be that these things were handled, very directly, face to face. And then that energy is unleashed. And everyone can take a breath again afterwards. Right? But that does not happen when you have like this middle man who gets in the way and tells you how it needs to be done and this and that. And if you're the party that is grieved, you better still listen to the middleman or you are going to be in trouble. That's unhealthy. But this happens often enough across over the centuries, everywhere across the world. You have all of this pent up energy. You have all this accountability that is put on hold, this responsibility that is even falling away, and you see, personally I think you see that just vanishing. The sense of personal responsibility. Just join a group who is doing some kind of nonsense charity or what have you, that where the money never goes where it should, and we'll call it a day. Yeah, well, that sort of dishonesty, that doesn't resolve anything either. In fact, might make things worse, because now you have yet so many more grievances, of the people who invest in these charities and were fooled, the people who were supposed to get something from those charities and were also fooled. It's just a multiplication by magnitude uncountable. And maybe that is also why now we see in the West, but maybe in other places too, we see everything breaking down slowly but surely. Or that is how I look at it, you take it as you will. And criminality just skyrockets. And I have the suspicion that this is that latent pent-up energy that is coming forth. The volcano, like the cracks are wide open in the floor, but the volcanic eruption, it's coming, but it has yet to manifest. You could have several responses to that. Could say, we'll put a plug in it and keep it going for as long as possible. We're gonna sue people, just bring in all the narcotics and what have you, right? Introduce it into society so people will be too emotionally neutered or just out of their minds. But even a lot of junkies then still can get, violent, criminal. So again, that energy finds its way through, man. It doesn't even matter if someone is consciously aware of it. Energy is a real thing. Whether you can't, it's not because you can't see or grasp it that it's not there. That's one of the spiritual aspects of this magical world that we live in. But yeah, it definitely, if it's denied, if people are basically in denial about it, it will come back. It always will, and nature will take a few generations if it has to. Nature doesn't care about that. Now I bring up criminal behavior, and I link that to that lack of accountability and responsibility over the centuries, worldwide, let's say. But why? Because, you know, is it fair to make that connection? Well, there are regions, let's say Poland. There are, like these days, like in 2022, I think Poland is doing better financially, but up until the early 20, well, in the 2000s, for example, there were still many regions that were recovering from the controllers of the world. Let's put it like that. And a lot of people lived in material poverty. But the neighborhoods where this was the case were crimeless. There was no crime there. People worked together. You know? If you and yeah, I mean, what is that? I guess these people truly cared about each other, and the energy that I talk about that was pent up might have been released in the century before or what have you. And you just see people acting decently enough. I wasn't there, but I've received such stories, and I wanted to speak to that too, because it's not that because the controllers fall away that they go, that everything has to become criminal. No, I'm saying that it only seems to happen in places where you have just a ton of people who have not been held accountable for their deeds. Actually, one way or the other. If they were doing good deeds and they never were awarded for it, that creates frustration too, right? I'm not saying that those same people would immediately go to criminality, but they might just stand by. It's like, it's not. I've done my part, and I always get flack for it. So, if you're a hero, let's say, and you keep pulling people out of fires, if you're a fireman or whatever, but while you're pulling them out, you're risking your own life and what have you, and these people are shouting at you, "Oh, get off me!" Blah blah. Yeah, at some point you might just be like, yeah, you know what, these tankless people, individuals, I've had enough. I'm not risking my life for that. It's a thing. It makes sense to me. So I think in many ways there is the fear that a lot of people are going to have to meet that accountability, and that's why they just keep running away from it. It might just also explain why people just allow everything to deteriorate. Over the, let's say, the last 2 decades, as I see it in the West, they allow everything to deteriorate because they will stubbornly hold on to the ways that they are set in, and they will stubbornly keep denying, whatever it might have been that that they would perhaps should be held accountable for. And they do not care if everything just breaks down, it seems, because that's just part of what they do. If running away from your accountability and responsibility is what you basically live by, then you're gonna keep doing it no matter how much it piles up, right? And if eventually then, the cracks widen so far that the volcano goes up, yeah, they will still run away. They will try, but I mean, look at the West as it is, and maybe the rest of the world too, I do not know. But, yeah. Let people's actions tell it all. You don't need me for that, right? So, what's the purpose of me bringing this up though? Because that's gonna play out no matter what. Okay. Uh, good. That would be an excellent question to ask. What's the purpose then of this video if it's gonna play out? And if you can look at it this way, and I might be wrong, so bear that in mind. At least then it might help in understand or work towards understanding what is going on. Why do certain regions become like crime-infested holes the moment the controllers of the world are gone, out of the streets, what have you? Why are the controllers themselves maybe not doing the nicest things? It might find its root in all of that, or at least one root, you know. And can I add something to that? Yeah, the purpose, aside from understanding perhaps, or coming to a little bit more of clairvoyance on the matter, I guess, is that, is this what we want to happen again? So future oriented, if we start thinking about today and about tomorrow, both of them, not just the one. Let's say the current controllers fall away. Are we really, even if they are supposed to be our controllers, which is not a thing, it does not exist, if are we really going to let another bunch take over? I personally do not want that. I think people should just be mature, should face the consequences of their actions, being responsible. I mean, that is being honorable as well. You ask me what is honor, I can tell you that is someone who accepts the consequences of his actions. A dishonorable person is the one who flees, the coward. Yeah. And I want an honorable, I think what I want is an honorable, for lack of another term, society, an honorable tribe. I think a lot of good people want nothing more as well. It's not gonna happen though if we allow ourselves to be, if we surrender our individual self to another group, another party, another uniform, another organized religion. I've said it before, I know, but so far I've yet to hear someone actually. Well, I've had people disagree with me on that, but I have not really garnered anything substantial. If I do get something substantial, I bring it up in my videos. It doesn't happen too often because, well, what shall one say? I think deep down, this might be something that most people agree with. Even the ones who deny it, on the deepest level, because you have to know reality to deny it, right? Someone who is ignorant, well, is not really part of that equation. Someone who is ignorant cannot be delusional because there is nothing to be delusional about. So the denier knows truth, just pretends it's not there, or pretends that something else, some opposite of the truth is what have you. But it's all pretense. So, yeah, having that said, Also, I've mentioned this before in another video, kind of, but the game of inches and middlemen. Now, I've not called it like that before, I think. It's part of what the controllers do. Oh, maybe real quick. Personally, I do not care if a controller is a non-white or a white. I just don't want them. I do not trust it for one iota. I do not even care if these controllers would be genuine good people who, with their control that they have over the world or over a society or over a tribe, will do good. Because as we can all clearly see, give it long enough and it all goes rotten. It takes one evildoer to get in there and the entire process of destruction begins again. Man, capital M man, has to mature. That's what's up. Can we survive, our maturing stage? Might be a good question to ask. And I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people will not. And that is important if you care for your own people, for your own bloodlines, if you will. Southern also spoke about this, that blood matters to him. And I agree with that full-heartedly, that is a very important aspect. There will be those of your own blood who do not care about that. But that is, that is up to them, reap what you sow afterwards, I guess. For not caring about your own. And again, as I mentioned before, if you do not love yourself, you can never love someone else. That's how that works. So, the white anti-white. These things, these creatures do not love anyone. So if you're a non-white and you're surrounded by a white anti-white, you think, oh, what a nice person or what have you, helps me in pushing off other whites or what have you. Yeah, prepare for holes in your back, I suppose. It's gonna happen. Especially when the cracks start widening. You kidding me? But you do with that warning as you will. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can add much else to that. Oh yeah, the middleman, of course. Still early, guys. The middleman and the game of inches. It's part of what controllers do. Once they have something, well, a controller will get like a small dopamine hit, if you will, for controlling something new. For example, they control traffic and they get a dopamine hit. Oh, I make them all drive as I want, or what have you. You get like a shiver and does something other that's disgusting, what have you. Some disgusting gesture or expression. But then like a day later, it's like, controller looks at the traffic and thinks to oneself that he or she already controls this. And then the question follows, what else is there to be controlled? What they wear. What they think. Oh, that's the big dopamine hit, right? But they cannot openly immediately throw it out. Oh, now I tell all of you to do this because I want to control that. Well, people are gonna stick up their middle fingers, right? As they well should. But inch by inch. Oh, like for what they wear. First we're gonna make sure that there is only a certain fabric that can be made. So we're gonna control what fabrics they wear. Let's start there. But it can all still be in different sizes and colors and blah blah blah. And then a generation later, this can take generations. They'll do it. They don't care. It's all about control for them. They enjoyed themselves from their entire lives working up to that. The next generation of controllers will happily take over. Of course they will. And then it begins with only certain fabrics, and then only certain sizes, and then only certain colors, and then only certain what have you. It completely becomes codified and abusive and stunting towards the individuals forced into this. And you can apply that to every field of society, if you will. And people do not take back their inches, even though they complain, oh, I have to, someone who says, oh, I can only wear synthetic fabrics anymore. Oh well, I can still have all my colors. Oh, the colors are gone too. Oh well, I still have different jackets and different types of trousers. So, up until the point that the children of someone like that think that that's all there is. You describe clothing to them, and they can only envision whatever uniform is left for them and nothing else. Yeah, you know. You might think, oh, but that's a silly example. Yeah, but look at society. Look at some other cultures too, if you must. Shit, pardon me. Look at, uh, or look at your own society and certain businesses, uh, yeah, certain instances of the organizations of the controllers themselves. Uniforms are still a thing. So I guess we came a bit full circle there. But why do people allow that? Because people do. Seriously, I think it has a lot to do with not taking your own responsibility. Maybe even having to worry for whatever reason a lot of individuals about their personal accountability. It might actually say a lot about those who don't want to be controlled, that they have also nothing to fear, that they are the genuine people uh, who live honorably. I think so. That seems sensible to me. Might be a few ignorants out there who can be honorable still. Um, Although that's a bit of an iffy thing. That's a very grey zone there. But what have you? And it's not just about thumping yourself on the chest or patting your shoulder, although that is a healthy thing to do when it's done at the right time, if you will. If that is simply how it is, so be it. So, yeah, and the machine is about to give out again. Don't have that long anymore. I really wanted to add something else, but I don't think I'm gonna have the time. I guess I just wanted to share this. Uh, yeah, I'm. I do think that to change everything for the better, you need to look at yourself. That is really the solution, and it does not seem that way, because people will say, "Well, yeah, but if you are, some might call it individualism, and I think in a certain sense that's fair. But if they might say, yeah, see, but if everyone is his own individual, then a collective can show up and just overwhelm you. I get it, but it's like I said before, it's sort of a false dichotomy, because you're constantly your individual self and in a collective. And the collective can be your family, the collective can be your friends, your crew. I mean, and you can be yourself, you can be 100% yourself and still band together with those guys. You can even learn certain self-defense doctrines, if you will, to resolve. Yes, teach yourself certain self-defense doctrines with all your individualistic friends. People say uh, that's a contradiction. No, it's not, because it's always interwoven. Individualism and collectivism aren't these two separate circles or whatever. No, they're interwoven circles. And I think that is something. I do not get the sense that people overall look at it that way. So, you know, that's what I think might be a helpful look. It's not about being one or the other. It's about knowing when to, practice the one or practice the other. It's a practice. It should actually be a verb. It should not be a concept as it is. If like, I'm in a certain sense, I'm being individualistic because I'm by myself. I'm doing fun things, having a walk in the green, right? That's an individual act. But my interaction with you already could be considered collectivist in a sense, because I'm communing with someone else, and that is something, nobody is an island. So there you go. I think that's what I have to say on that. And maybe, like with a natural hierarchy and an artificial hierarchy, maybe there is something like a natural individualism and a natural collectivism, and an artificial individualism and an artificial collectivism. Did I get them all? I think so. You get the idea, right? Yeah, I'm not actually expecting any replies anymore because I get the sense I'm so thoroughly shadow banned these days that I only get like 2 or 3 comments here or there, even though I get like messages in other feeds that I have now linked, and it's like, quite a bit of a list. Let's put it like that, of replies, and yeah, they just don't show up. And also the views on my videos, it makes no sense. One time I have 300 views, then 100, then 70, then 60, then 100 again. And then 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 60, 50, 50, 70, 50, 50. But you guys know this too, if you've been following my videos for a while. It's time to go somewhere else, isn't it? Maybe that's in that sense the anti-white has its purposes, It's that friction you need to move on in life. So you don't become too hobbit-ish. Being a hobbit is fine, but not too much. You got to be a bit like a took. You have to adventure a little once in a while. That's healthy. And I'm gonna leave it there. Just be a took. And you all have a good one. And talk to you soon. Bye bye.